the supermarket and I find spreadable sandwich pickles. Yum. Hello everybody. So this is my last night in Cairns. I'm flying out tomorrow to Brisbane and then to Newcastle, which will be my new home. And I'm excited, but I'm also very sad because I love it here. So I thought that I would take you through a little recap of what I've been doing this week, starting with the rainforest. The first thing that we did was we ate lunch as soon as we got there. Oh no, we took a bus ride there. But this wasn't any normal bus ride. This was a bus ride through the mountains, so it was woo, 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 back and forth, back and forth, back and forth the entire time. And nobody warned me, or else I would have taken a motion sickness tab. I don't think I get motion sick, but the thought of getting motion sick makes me sick. The lunch at the rainforest was actually very delicious. There was a big spread, well, not a big spread compared to buffets in America, but this was just like one line, but it had good options on there. The buffet that we have here is very small. It's like not a buffet because they have like 3 hot things and 4 cold things. So I guess buffets are smaller here in Australia, but that's okay because it's nice to try new food. Speaking of trying new food, at the Rainforest Station, they had kangaroo and crocodile soup. It was a record-breaking hot day in history. It hit like 101 degrees, which isn't that hot, not record-breaking hot, so I was a little surprised, but it was record-breaking hot. Anyway, so I didn't want to try the crocodile soup because it was so hot outside, but I did try kangaroo, and kangaroo tastes just like steak, but it's very chewy. But it was good, I liked it. So after lunch, we went and rode these mobiles called army ducks, and it was just like the duck boats. On the army ducks, we saw 2 fluorescent butterflies. They were like neon blue. It was so pretty, and I looked it up and they're called Ulysses butterflies.
It takes about 1.5 to 2 metres of rain a year to support a rainforest like this. That's about 5 or 6 feet of rain, and last year here at Rainforest Station we had over 2.5 metres of rain, or about 10 or 12 feet of rain, and that's our average for this area. They need the extra rain and sunlight that we get up here to get so big. And if you look in the centre of the crown there, you can see that's where the new fronds come out. And those fronds come out all curled up. You can see there are very sharp spikes up and down both edges. And this plant also gets a fruit on it that looks a little bit like a small spiky pineapple. But that fruit is quite poisonous. If you eat it, you could get very sick. But local people would carefully pick some of those leaves and then they'd peel the spikes off. The spikes come off in a big long strip quite easily. And then with the rest of the leaf, they'd weave a basket. Then they could pick some of that spiky fruit, they'd mash it up with a rock or a stick, put that in the basket that they just made, and then put the whole thing in a running stream for a week or 2. And that would wash all of those poisons and toxins out. And then they could come along and pick it up out of the stream and eat it just like it was, or they'd cook it up like a starchy bread. And they used to call it the old people's fruit, because young people didn't have the patience to go through all that for a meal that was washed out and tasteless anyway. Yeah, there must have been quite a few upset stomachs working out the recipe for that as well, I think. So most of the food and the fruit from this particular rainforest are fairly poisonous, so most of them have to be treated in some way before they can be eaten. And some of those treatment processes are very complex, almost advanced chemistry, so nobody's really quite sure exactly how they worked out how to do it. And across northern Australia we also get freshwater crocodiles. They get up to about 2 metres long, or 7 feet long. And they're considered harmless and they could live in here, but they prefer nice quiet places, so they just choose to live somewhere else. So there are no crocodiles in here, but we do have dragons.
Oh yeah.
For half an hour or more. So this pond that we're in at the moment was the original irrigation water supply for when this was a coffee plantation. After the drought that I mentioned, they must have decided this pond wasn't big enough, so they made another dam wall over the back there on the left. They created the other pond that we're about to go into, and then clear this bit of a gap in the original dam wall. So after Rainforest Station was a coffee plantation. It was then turned into paddocks where they would rest bullock teams and would haul loads up and down the Coranda Range. Then it was turned into a citrus orchard where they grew mostly Valencia oranges. And in the 1970s, the current owners bought this property, and they added tropical fruit trees to that orchard from all over the world. 40 or 50 different varieties of exotic fruits were grown here. And then a few years after that, they started the Army Duck Tours, and the rest of the business has slowly grown from there. So as we go back through the gap here, if you have a look across the pond in front of us, you'll see there's another big black wattle tree there. And about halfway up that tree on the fork of the tree, you'll see there's a brown stain in the fork of the tree. And that's where there was another termite's nest. And that particular termite nest had holes in it, about this big. And those holes are made by kingfishers. So kingfishers are small, colourful birds. They're relatives of Australia's laughing kookaburra. The kookaburra is the biggest kingfisher in the world, but its smaller cousins, little blue and white and blue and orange birds that we sometimes get around here, they will often peck a hole into the centre of termite nests. They make a little chamber in there, and that's where they lay their eggs and raise their young. Termite nests are a nice stable temperature inside, and they're also very waterproof, which is handy because the birds usually breed during the wet season. As we go past these trees, you can see all the dark lines on the tree trunks and branches there as well, and they're the mud-covered tunnels that termites have made to get up and down to that nest, or to whatever part of the tree that they were eating. So this other tree beside us here is a Melaleuca tree, and number 13 on the sheets. And the common name for it is a paperbark tree. You can see how the bark is coming off in layers, just like paper. And you could grab a piece of that and peel it apart layer by layer down to tissue paper thickness. But if you have a few layers of it together, it's quite waterproof. So local people would sometimes cut or peel a section of the bark off the trunk of that tree, and then they'd use that to make a bowl to carry water, or occasionally they'd even make canoes from it. So it's not really what you'd expect from something called paperbark.
Oh my gosh.
Good for teaching boyfriends, they tell me. I still remember these from high school, but not very fond of them.
Oh wow, big!
Oh, sorry.
Big boy. Where'd he go?
I don't. Oh, there he is.
Water dragon?
That was kind of water dragon.
Where is it? Oh yeah, down there. Yeah, that's even harder
He's
to see.
huge.
So it's a couple of metres back behind this log here. It's probably behind that green bush for most of you. So I'll start going forward very slowly. Yeah, coffee tree, left over from the original coffee plantation. Those berries there are actually called cherries. Coffee is a fruit tree. Those cherries will turn a bright red colour when they're ready to be picked. The coffee cherries have a soft, pulpy skin, so if you give them a squeeze, you'll get 2 coffee beans pop out of each one. Those coffee beans have a second skin on them that's thin but very tough. So after they're picked, they get soaked for a couple of days. That softens up the skin so it comes off easily. Then they're dried out for a few weeks, and after that, whenever you're ready, you can roast it and grind it up for your coffee.
The army ducks were just like Disney World. We were waiting in line to get on this safari-looking truck, and we had a skipper Chris, just like on the Jungle Cruise, and he actually did a few bad jokes, just like they do on the Jungle Cruise. So I was a little pleased that it was bringing me back to Disney World. So the Army Duck Tour was sort of a mix between the safari and Jungle Cruise. After the Army Ducks, we went to go watch an Aboriginal dance show, which was very interesting. I didn't know that we were doing that, so it sort of caught me off guard. But then they started playing the didgeridoo, and they started making noises with their mouths, and then they started shaking their legs. And I wanted to film more than one of the dances, but as I was watching, they did the same leg shake in every single dance, and that was just the dance, I guess. But there was one funny part where one of the guys had to be a honey tree, and he just held leaves in front of his face and shook his legs. after the dance show, we went to go throw boomerangs, and I was so excited because I didn't know that we were doing that either. So I'm gonna teach you the proper boomerang technique. And let me tell you, it's just like throwing a softball or a baseball, except you gotta get it at 1 o'clock. You gotta turn your wrist to 1 o'clock. You bring it back. You pull it forward 1 o'clock, and the secret is the flick of the wrist at the end. You gotta go psh, and then it comes back at you. So I went first, and I was pretty scared because I never won. Well, I am one to go first, but I would rather have watched somebody do it to see the proper way to do it. So I was going first, and I threw it. I had a target, just like I do with Can Jam. You have a target, and and I threw it, and it came back to me. It was probably the best throw of the day. It was amazing, and it was very fun, and I'm glad that I was good at it, because I would have been sad if I threw it to the ground. After throwing the boomerang, we went to the wildlife park, and we got to see a bunch of indigenous Australian wildlife.
This is a marsupial, has a little pouch. See how that one's spinning around? I don't know if you saw that. So, do you know the Looney Tunes?
Yeah.
Well, the one thing they did get right is the noise. And the other thing is they do spin around, not like a tornado, but they do spin around very slowly.
This is a dingo.
This is a dingo. So a dingo is essentially very closely related to a wolf. You might think it looks very closely related to your
I honestly had no idea what a dingo was until this very moment.
Because your dog, domestic dog, and this guy, or the Asiatic wolf I should say, are both subspecies of the great.
I hate it.
Okay. It's like a guitar string.
Oh my
It's the strongest web of any spider. It's also the largest spider that lives in a web. Now let me tell you, this is a juvenile.
How big? How big?
It gets to maybe that big. It's called a golden orb weaver, or a golden orb weaving spider. Now, yeah, they have the strongest. They have the strongest web. It's not sticky at all, so it's quite surprising how they catch things. But it is so strong that sometimes a bird will fly into this and get caught, and they'll eat the bird. So they're not a bird-eating spider as such, but they can eat.
But they do eat.
And yeah, you only see them in the wet season, and they'll get to the end of the wet season, they'll get really, really big, and a male would be literally that big.
Are they poisonous?
Just a little bit, like a bee or something like that. But not that noise up there. The same as our big. Okay, so.
It's funny that they stand on their hind legs, but then when they walk, they use their hands. And do you see these in the wild at all?
Yeah, sometimes. So we don't have male. This one has a little toe.
Hello. Buddy. Do you want some food? They're so gentle. This is the softest animal ever.
I like they're on vacation, like this one over here. But these are, in here we have female koalas, because we have an important breeding program here. As you can imagine, it would be important to breed these animals. Oh, in fact, no, this one here, sorry. So we have 3 females that have given birth this year. We're talking about a very underdeveloped little baby when it's born. I think there's 5 in here. So some of them are a bit more active than others because we have only just recently changed this food out. So they've got plenty of food in there and they are eating some of that.
That's a tree kangaroo.
But it will also climb.
He's going in the pouch. He
just went
the pouch. He's in the pouch. Please turn around. I want to see.
Well, can I just show you the crocodiles and then we'll go and do that? Okay, let's go and see that. This is just an area where our wallabies get away from us, and that's a little joey out of the pouch there. Yeah. That's the one we just saw before. And it's
Going in the pouch.
It's going in. It's going in. Watch it go in. It's so cute. Why'd you do that? Watch.
Do it. You can do it, baby.
Oh, he's so cute. Go in.
He's in!
That's like the best thing I've ever seen.
one down here. Can you see that one? That's a, yeah, these are
It's a
monitors.
big lizard.
What? And you just look at his nostrils and you can see him breathe.
That is the biggest animal I've ever
In
seen.
Australia we have two types. This is the real dangerous one. So this one is about 6 meters in length.
I have to interrupt for a moment because this video does not do the crocodile justice. This crocodile was massive. It looked like it was a dinosaur. It was bigger than anything I had ever seen, and it probably could have swallowed any human whole. It was giant. After the wildlife tour, we got to get a picture with a koala. Big smiles for me, though. Ready, 1, 2, 3. So all of that fun stuff at the rainforest happened yesterday, but today we got to snorkel in the Great Barrier Reef. And I didn't do much filming on the Great Barrier Reef because we were surrounded by water, and this isn't a waterproof camera. So I pretty much just kept it away the whole day except for 2 little clips that I'm gonna show. But I thought that I would give you my review of snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef. So, it wasn't what I expected it to be. Not that it wasn't beautiful, but I thought that we were gonna be like snorkeling, but not like heavy duty snorkeling. They gave us wetsuits, not even wetsuits. They were suits to protect us from jellyfish stings, or stingers, as they say. But these suits were so tight. And they didn't ask anybody's sizes. They just looked at the person and handed them a size. And I was very flattered, but the guy gave me a medium. And some parts of my body are a medium, but others are not. So, pulling this wetsuit up, I am just pulling, getting it up. Finally, I get it up. But then, the wetsuit has a hood, and it has a zipper that comes up to your chin. So all that's showing is your little face. And then you have goggles on, and then a snorkel. So you're pretty much all tucked up into a little cocoon, which made me feel claustrophobic, which I wasn't very excited about because I started panicking a little bit. Oh, and we had flippers on. I had never worn flippers. I hadn't snorkeled in like 15 years. So, having all this equipment on that I haven't been used to, and being just in the middle of the ocean, it was a little scary at first. It wasn't scary. I was just freaking out because I had to breathe through my mouth and I was claustrophobic. So, the first go around, I was pretty much just worried about all of my equipment and how I'm gonna get back to the boat and all the stuff that I shouldn't have been worrying about, but I was. So I went in pretty early. I was the first one of my group to get in, and I was contemplating on whether I was gonna go out for the second not scuba dive. I was contemplating on whether I was gonna go back for the second snorkel, but I decided to because this would be probably my last chance to go snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef. So I figured that I probably should. And boy, I'm glad that I did, because I loved it. As soon as I went out the second time, I was used to the flippers, I was used to the snorkel, and somebody told me that I didn't have to wear my hood up. So I kept it down, I kept the zipper down here, so I felt so much better. And I stayed out there the entire time. I was out there till the people called, hey, last snorkelers, you gotta come in. And I wish that I could have stayed out for longer because it was so beautiful. While I was snorkeling, I didn't see anything really cool. I just saw a lot of the coral and a lot of the reef, and the fish were amazing. The fish, their colors were so bright and so beautiful. But it was pretty sad because seeing the colorful fish compared to the reef was pretty gray and dull. So overall, I give the Great Barrier Reef 2 thumbs up because it was amazing to just be out there. And it was the parts where we were, there was shallow reef and then there was really deep reef. So you could see the ocean floor. It was so beautiful. So as I said, tonight is my last night in Cairns, and it has been wonderful. I've met a lot of really cool people. We got along great, and tomorrow we're gonna go our separate ways. So hopefully this is just a precursor to what's to come, and I am so excited to continue the rest of my journey in Australia.